Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Parks and Restoration Podcast. I'm Chris Lee, joining you today from the East Coast and somewhat snowy part of Iowa.
And I'm Jeremy Yost, joining you from the west coast of Iowa, where I just got back from a weekend hunting trip in south central Nebraska. Got to chase some quail down there. It was super fun.
So, today we are talking about vision, and not the kind that you see roosters with, but no, the kind that you imagine in your brain. And I want to start this off with a little bit of a story. So imagine there's this guy, and he's from Boston. He walks up to this podium at this stadium at Rice University down in Houston, Texas, and it's hot. It's blazing hot because it's Texas and it's summertime, and he's got to convince the nation that this vision is worth pursuing. And he gets up there, and what he doesn't do is lay out a strategic plan. He doesn't lay out a step-by-step process. In fact, the vision that he has, that he is trying to sell to the nation, nobody even knows how it's possible. The technology doesn't exist to make this happen. So why in the world did everyone buy into it? The person I'm talking about is JFK. And in 1962, at Rice University, he walked up to the podium and said, "We are going to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely by the end of this decade." Now, this was 1962. We had only figured out manned flight in, what was it, like 1905 or something like that? The technology didn't exist to put a human on the moon and bring him back safely. And yet, we all know what happened. So the point we're making today is that your vision for your parks, for your department, for your community, for your life, whatever it is, that is the selling point, not the 10-point strategic plan, not the 5-year goals, not the what's in the house, but the vision, which really is rooted in the why. And we can get into some of that here in a little bit. But I have seen over and over and over parks departments out there that just seem to be crushing it. Like, we all know these. If you've ever written a grant or you've ever gone after funding or whatever, you've all seen this. You know, like, how in the hell do they just keep getting this funding? How is it that they have donors that just seem to walk out of the woods and be like, "Hey, guess what? I want to give you $1 million." It was because they had a vision. They had a vision for a park that, look, this is what we want this thing to be. We have no idea how we are going to get there. We have no idea how we're going to pay for the thing, but this is what we want to provide for this community. This is what we want to provide for future generations. These are the experiences we want them to have. This is the type of department that we want to be. This is the type of community that we want to build. Do you want to join us?
Exactly.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly. All of that is just truly rooted in storytelling and making that compelling story for others. And it's really that thing that you're aspiring to, that thing that's going to get people connected with the thing that you truly believe in. And that's really connected back to our why.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, have you seen some of this, and how have you seen this manifest in your line of work or in positions that you've had or roles that you've been in? How have you seen that shake out?
The best example that I have is actually back to our last episode that we released last week. We actually went back into the archives and picked back out an awesome story with Chad Gravy, my boss. And if you go back and listen to that one, or you're caught up with us and you've listened to that one before, he just has an amazing ability to tell a story that's really rooted around ecology and rooted around this larger vision for something larger than himself, for this thing that is really Hitchcock Nature Center. And it's the protection and the restoration of the Loess Hills right here in Pot County. And, you know, if you've listened to him talk before and you've really gotten into the why he likes to do it, it's really this dream that he had of expanding this park and protecting and restoring this thing that was really critical to the way that he grew up, and getting to this point where we're actually able to do restoration on a truly landscape scale. It's really never a never-ending vision, one that's compelling enough to actually get people to be willing sellers, for the neighbors of this thing that started as just a little 500-acre park to have 13 different purchases, and it now sits at over 1,500 acres.
Yeah. In what, about 3 decades?
Exactly.
maybe a little less.
The ultimate goal is 2,200 acres that it's kind of defined by these areas of the Missouri River floodplain and the Pigeon Creek and then Old Lincoln Highway. So we make this little triangle that really we can manage that whole landscape. And so right now we're sitting at only a few more purchases and we can actually achieve that goal, which will be absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And so taking it back to my neck of the woods here, the vision that my department had way back started in so our department, Des Moines County Conservation, started in 1962. We were established by the voters, as most county conservation departments were, through the 50s and 60s. And by as early as the 1970s, there were already engineer drawings and master plans for the comprehensive outdoor recreation area that would become what is now an 800-acre park called Big Hollow. It's our main park. It's got campgrounds, but its main feature is the lake, the 178-acre lake. And as I said, we had these engineer drawings, these maps with, the roads and the campgrounds and the lake drawn on it. And, the lake is just built on elevations. So it's as the lake ended up being. And we've got these things from as early as 1972 or 3 or something like that, which means that the engineering process probably started even before that. I think the first parcels of ground for this park were acquired in the 1960s, late 1960s. Care to guess? Well, I think you probably know this answer because you worked here. What year was the lake actually completed?
Well, I think it depends on what you call completed. Was it the first time the dam was built or the second time the dam was built?
Okay, yeah. When it was officially done. Yeah, it's kind of wet back then. Yeah. So 2008 is when the lake was officially completed. And if anybody's from any part of the world that has the Mississippi on it, up in the upper part of it, you'll remember that 2008 was a catastrophic year. We had the highest flood of all time and all this stuff. So it was a very, very wet year, and they had some issues with that. But so 1960s, the dream for this thing is in place, and they're buying parcels of ground and got engineer drawings from the early 1970s in our office. And there may be some older ones than that. I've just happened to come across those. And then the lake's finally built in 2008. Now, that is a long time to maintain a vision. I mean, there are directors that came and went. There were board members that came and went. They literally lived and died and never saw this thing come all the way to what it is today. And I can guarantee that the leaders of 50 years ago, or whenever it was, 60 years ago, had no idea what it was going to take to get this thing to where it was, or where they were going to get the resources. They knew it was going to take stupid sums of money to build this thing. Like a thing like this had not been done in our county ever. I mean, county conservation was only just becoming a thing at the time. And so, no, they didn't have any idea where they're going to get the money. No, they didn't have any idea if they're going to be able to acquire all the land. No different than Chad Gravy knew where he was going to be able to get all the land to turn Hitchcock into the 2,200-acre landscape scale restoration that it's becoming today. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean you don't grab onto this vision and communicate it relentlessly. And that's the first point in this discussion that I want to make, is the role of the leader of any organization, or if you're in any sort of leadership role. You don't even have to necessarily be the top dog, but if you're going to be in any sort of leadership capacity, your role is to develop and communicate a compelling vision as to what could be and what that dream is, and communicate it relentlessly. The more you do, the more people are going to be able to actually grasp what that is and then rally behind it. And so that's one of the key points is as a leader, your job is to develop that compelling vision and communicate it.
So, yeah, I think that Big Hollow vision is a really compelling one, because I remember that in the office when I worked there, that was in West Burlington at the time, that map from the 1970s was on the wall. And it
Yeah.
was one of the very first things that you saw when you walked in, was this like concept drawing that honestly looked like it was done in colored pencil. And for that day and time, like, it legitimately might have been colored pencil, but still, it was something tangible. It was something real. And it was something that people could look at and rally around. I think an important thing about that too is that Big Hollow today does not look exactly the same as that map. but it was still this aspirational vision. And the core pieces of that vision were the campground and the trails and the lake. And really like the key parts of it. It didn't necessarily matter the fine details of exactly where the campground's going to go or exactly where all of these other aspirational things were going to go. It was still a compelling story that you were able to rally around over time from the 1960s to 2008 to today, still rally around that vision and make it become a reality.
And it's still a work in progress. It's far from done. We have a master plan. There's that word again, plan. And it's less of a plan. I mean, you call it a master plan because that's just the syntax that we use. But it's really just a vision for what the next level of development on this park is, and it includes like lakefront cabins and more accessible features. You know, some paving, things like that. And we put this all into a document, and we put it out there. And we're like, you know, here's the big things that are coming to this park next. Like here's the next big vision for what's coming. And when you do something like that, so you know, you create this document or you describe this vision of what a particular place could be. What's the response that you often get from people?
Right. That response is like, there's no way that that's going to be able to happen, or where are you going to get that money? Or,
Yeah.
you know, it can end up being negative, but if you're able to still take and make a compelling vision, you can turn that into a positive and turn it into momentum.
Yeah. And that's just it. Is oftentimes you'll go out there, especially like with the on the politics side of things. So I remember the first time I laid this out to the county board of supervisors, and they practically laughed me out of the room, like literally, because at the end of it, I'm like, you know, this is going to be $10 million at least. Yes, this was 20. I don't remember when the hell I wrote it, but 2021 ish, I think is when it was. You know, they're like, well, where are you going to get $10 million? I'm like, I don't know. Where was NASA going to get the money to land a person on the moon? Like all the big things that have ever happened ever at any level, like you don't know how it's going to happen, you know, but then they want to get in all the details. People aren't going to spend that much for a cabin or da 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 da, and telling you all the ways that it can't fucking be done. Can't is the worst 4-letter word. Do not. So here's rule number 2 from this discussion right now is do not let the naysayers beat you down, because when people, I don't know what the mechanism is in people's brains, but when they hear something that they can't personally come up with a way to achieve, they immediately start dragging you down. Like, oh, that can't be done. Or have you thought about all the ways this is going to be hard, or all the ways this won't work, or you know, all the hurdles that you're going to have to cross? Like, I just don't see how this is going to happen. Okay, great. But then getting back to your point earlier, like, let's tell the story of what this is going to be. I don't necessarily care where these cabins go. I don't care who pays for them. There's going to be grants come along. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a park where people can come and make memories. We're going to create a park where mom and dad and the kids can go and just lose themselves for an entire weekend. We're going to create the type of park that, by sheer merit of its existence, people from Chicago and the cities within a day's drive of where we are here in Southeast Iowa are going to want to come here because this place is here. Now, the what's in the house, I don't know. We'll figure that out. But that's what we're trying to do. And then telling those stories of, you know, here's what this park does. We get 70,000 visitors a year. And here's the actual impact that that makes on real humans. And here's why we want to do this more and more and more. And pretty soon, what happens is somebody comes up and says, hey, this is cool. I like this idea. I don't have any idea how you're going to do it, but here's some money. See what you can do with this. And then that snowballs. And when we first rolled out that plan, we had somebody come up to me and said, what's it going to take to, because we wanted to do this big upgrade to our campground and add campsites and stuff. And we talked about this on a previous episode. They said, oh, how much is it going to take to do it? And I'm like, I don't remember what the number was at the time. I was like, I'm going to need $100,000 to leverage the grants that I need to leverage. And they said, okay. I said, what? And they said, we'll give you the $100,000. I'm like, holy shit. And then, you know, then the snowball started rolling, and 18 months later we were done. We had had that whole phase of it complete. And so never underestimate the power of the vision, and never, ever, ever, ever let somebody tell you that you can't do it, because
Exactly.
the minute you buy into that is the minute you lose the game.
Exactly. And I think another key point here is just to like keep in mind that you as the individual are not the hero of the story. There's this great saying that we brought up several times on here. It's not yours, it's just your turn. And so keep that in mind as you go along. Like Chris brought up before, this idea for Big Hollow started in the 60s, and it was just Chris's turn when he took over as director and has taken it to where it is now. And you're simply that like communicator of that story. You're just simply that person that's there to make sure that you're spelling out this compelling vision. And you're really just trying to connect the resources and the people to help make it a reality. Like the real heroes are the people who go out there and make memories. They're the community members, the supporters. They're those people who come in and say, I love your vision. Here's some resources to help make your program better or make this vision into a reality. And keep in mind that every chance you get, you should be saying that it's not just yours. It's really the vision for the community. Like that's part of the reason that county conservation exists is to provide opportunities for people to get outside and recreate and learn in these natural systems. And, it can end up like changing this changes the vision from like something that your department, your agency, or you are doing, and it brings in everyone and really brings a community together.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and that it's not yours. Like nobody wants. You see this oftentimes in private industry, is the CEO or the head dog wants to come in there and get all the accolades and be like, look what I accomplished, and maybe sometimes they'll throw a bone to their team, like, oh, look what the team did. But that's if you really want a vision to come to life, it's not about you, it's not about your team. Yes, give them credit, but it's about the community that's going to rally around you. That's the real heroes of it. And just as much as you are relentlessly communicating that vision, you have to also relentlessly communicate the who that's making it happen, and make it very, very clear that the heroes of this story are the very people that are rallying behind this, that want to see this happen, because then what you're doing is you're building a tribe, you're building a community, and you're building the type of thing that people want to be part of. And then that feeds on itself when people see that somebody has donated X amount of dollars to contribute to this, like, oh, well, if they're investing into it, well, then maybe I should too, because I value this stuff. And, that's absolutely critical, is that it isn't yours. It's your turn, sure, to carry this thing forward, or a different vision, but it is not you as the hero of this story. It's not something that you're going to do. You're not looking at getting the accolades for it. It's the community and it's the supporters that you're going to have that's going to make that possible.
Right. And when you get that momentum rolling and you think about all those naysayers along the way that you brought up, like it's so easy for people to say no. And it's so easy for people to just stick with the status quo because the status quo is easy. But if you're able to craft this vision that's in a way that is compelling to others and people start to say yes, that's when the snowball effect really takes place. Like I said, it's
Yeah,
easy to say no, but if you can sell it in a way that you get people to say, yes, I'm going to support that, that is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to create that community of people that are saying yes to that vision.
exactly. Yeah, a good parallel here would be Teddy Roosevelt. And and so this is another great example to use for what a compelling vision is that he wanted to create this national park system, and it wasn't that he wanted it to be the Teddy Roosevelt National Park System. He wanted simply to create and preserve the places where every American had a connection to wildness, because that was important to him, and he knew the value of this, and he wanted to preserve this ethic that he felt was defining to the American way of life. And when he first started, he didn't have the funding, he didn't have public buy-in for all of this. He certainly didn't have the support of Congress, but he painted this compelling vision of these unique wild places. We need to preserve them so that future generations can have the experiences that current Americans have, and that this becomes ingrained into the fabric of the United States, that wildness is something that we will always have, And he sold that vision, and Congress eventually bought in, and the public bought in. And what did he end up? Well, he didn't just protect Yellowstone and Yosemite, which are the ones we know. He created, these are crazy statistics, I had to look these up, 51 wildlife refuges. So the first ever wildlife refuges, 5 national parks, 150 national forests, 4 national game preserves, and 18 national monuments. That's a hell of a vision coming to life. And it wasn't so much to create a certain number of parks, but it was that idea that places in America would be wild forever. And like that's really what we're getting at. Like you made the great point earlier of it's not yours, it's just your turn. You are in a particular situation where there's some changes happening over there. Chad has been promoted up into operations supervisor, so he's no longer the head of the NAM program, which is the Natural Areas Management team that he was leading back when I interviewed him for that podcast episode, which is the last one that's been posted. So he's in a little bit different role. Now I know he's still carrying that vision forward, and you guys are too, but I got to believe that at some point Hitchcock's going to be complete, going to hit that acre goal of getting all the properties, within those boundaries that you described earlier. So then what's your vision that's developing in your brain? And let's kind of workshop that a little bit.
Right. So that's, yeah, like you said, with Chad taking a different position and our NAM program going through some changes, it's been something that I've been thinking about a whole bunch lately. Just this idea that Hitchcock has literally been like a career for Chad, and we're not quite there yet to exactly where he wanted to be. But realistically, if things continue on the same trajectory that they're on now, like we could have that done in the next 5 to 10 years. We could be at the 2,200 acres. And then there's always, those are the land purchases, but there's always this, we have to care for the land as well. And Chad has this saying that, the Hitchcock changed over the past 150 years with the exclusion of fire and the landscape changes that have happened there. And that his idea was always to be able to undo those changes within the next 50 years and try to bring the system into a place where it's healthy, where we're truly managing on a landscape scale. And we're applying for some grants that realistically, if we were to get these grants on the 1,500 acres that we have right now, that's a part of Hitchcock, if these grants, if we get them, we could realistically take that 50-year vision for land management and get it done in 5 years. And right. And so, like you said, with these other projects and these other things, sometimes it just comes down to money and the amount of time that you're able to get it done. And so something I've been thinking about lately is that, like, what if we really do get it done in the next 5 years with these grants, and then next 5 to 10 years we can be at that goal of 2,200 acres? When do you start to, if you're finally done with a vision, when do you change? How do you change?
Yeah,
And
that's I guess that's probably the bajillion-dollar question.
yeah, so I think that one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, really ever since I got this job, is just this idea of scale. Just thinking about just the natural areas management program, and this idea of the scale across what we're able to do. And, we are tasked with taking care of the whole county. It's not just Hitchcock Nature Center. And so across the whole county, we have about 2,000 acres. Pot County is the second largest county by the number of acres, and it's the ninth highest population. But yet we rank number 48 out of 99 in the number of acres that we actually manage. And so, like, we've been super focused on Hitchcock and being able to manage at a larger scale, but what are we missing in the meantime? Like, what else could we be doing? Are there other areas that we could be building another complex, or building out smaller areas for hunting or other forms of recreation that aren't provided at Hitchcock or any of our other parks? And so that's really a thing that I've been thinking about a lot, is like, where are the other opportunities? We have this vision that has been set out for Hitchcock and a few of our other parks, but can we expand on that vision to actually connect with other people? Because, like we said in this conversation, that your vision is really about connecting people around an idea. So are there other people that we can connect with if we shift that vision a little bit to actually connect it to other landscapes or other parts of the county.
Yeah. That kind of gets to the email that I sent out last week, I guess. By the way, listener, if you are not getting emails from me, that's real easy. Just put your name and email in a couple boxes right on the page, parksandrestoration.com. And you get these emails. This one was kind of off topic. Oftentimes the emails will come out and they're similar to what the podcast topic was, but um, the email was, I think the subject was, what do you really do? And I've led these discussions before in leadership programs that I've done. And there's this formula I like to use, and it's getting back to that story based thing. When somebody asks that question, maybe you're at a networking event or you're at a conference or something like that, and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, what do you do?" And oftentimes we default to the what's in the house. Like, well, I'm the director at Des Moines County Conservation. I lead a team of 10. We manage parks and trails and da 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 da. Whoop de freaking doo dah. But the formula that I recommend you use is it starts with how, and how you get that feeling when you catch that big fish you've been chasing, or you finally manage to get close to that big deer that you've been chasing, or when you're out on the trail and you come around a bend and you're eye to eye with a deer that you didn't know was there and you snuck up on, and you've got this moment that you're there face to face with wildness right in your backyard because it's this community park that you went to, or any of those feelings that you get when you're outdoors doing that stuff that you do. Maybe it's just the relaxation that you feel sitting around a campfire. And so then the other half of the formula is, well, and so you simply follow up with, well, I work at a conservation department and I provide those type of places so that people can get those experiences. And then you can get into the details. But immediately that paints the picture, that paints the vision kind of what it is that you do and what you want to accomplish. And so I know in your situation, Jeremy, you talk about restoring the hills out there. And obviously that's what you do. Your Chad and the conservation department has been acquiring these lands to restore this globally unique ecosystem back to the way it existed for eons before humans came in and changed the landscape by removing fire and allowing different species to take hold. So now you're bringing back to what it was. And so I guess I would follow up with, so what do you really do in so doing that? And so how would you answer that? I mean, obviously, yeah, it's restoring native species, but what's the story there? And it has to be tied back to people, just like you said earlier.
Right, exactly. So what really I believe and what it comes down to is that we are there to provide opportunities for people to recreate, learn, and explore thriving natural systems. And our natural areas management program is there to provide those natural systems for people to get out and connect with. And I think that's really what it boils down to in kind of this larger idea of a vision is people are going to connect with different landscapes in different ways. And so are there other things in Pot County that we can be providing? Like I said, I just went on a hunting trip in Nebraska last week, and I connected with that landscape in a completely different way than other forms of recreation. Just hike, like I happened to be hunting where I cross-sected a trail a couple times, and you're going to connect with that landscape in a different way if you're like pursuing that game and you're pursuing that wild thing, like you said, like coming eye to eye with a deer or whatnot, versus it just being a trail system. And so I think that what it's really boiling down to is like, can we provide some diversity to the areas or the ways that people are able to connect with nature?
Yeah, I like that. So let's dig in a little bit to what a compelling vision has to be in order for it to really be compelling and be the type of thing that people want to rally around. And we've got a list here in my notes here. So I'll jump with the first one. I feel like, and oftentimes in these podcasts, I'm referencing some sort of book or framework that I read about or came up with or something like that. Frankly, I don't have that. In this one, Jeremy and I just kind of brainstormed some shit and put it down into a doc. And there's a few of these that I feel a compelling vision absolutely does have to be. Yeah, I'm not necessarily bound to these, and maybe over time I'll refine this a little bit. But I know the the first one that a compelling vision does have to be is that it has to be audacious. I said I wasn't referencing a book, but one comes to mind in Jim Collins's book, Good to Great. He talks about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs. And the companies and the organizations that defined those and bought into those seem to do better than their competition, even in the same industry. And so a compelling vision does have to be audacious. It's got to feel like it's at the outer edge of what's possible. And, I tie this back to Teddy Roosevelt and creating national parks. Like that was at the outer edge of what was possible. Like, we're really going to protect and just lock down millions of acres at a time just because we want Americans to have access to wildness? Like, what? Or JFK saying we're going to land a person on the moon. Like, that is seriously at the outer edge of what's possible. Or in my instance, board members and directors in the 1960s saying we're going to create a several 100-acre park with a 178-acre lake right in the middle of it. Like there is not a public water body in Des Moines County that is anywhere close to that size, with the exception of the Mississippi River. And I'm sure that tons and tons of people said, "You're going to do what?" That is at the outer edge of what's possible. That might be far beyond the outer edge of what's possible. But because it's out there, because it's just far enough out there, people will be like, "Ooh, but what if they did?" Right? So
Exactly.
yes, it does have to be audacious.
And the next one here too is that it has to be aspirational. Like the best visions really tie back to an identity. They paint a picture of who we want to be as a community, as a nation.
Yeah. And, like Teddy Roosevelt was saying, we want Americans to have connection to wildness. Like that's aspirational. That's who we want to be as a nation. But it also has to be tangible. And this gets back to that storytelling thing. Like you brought up MLK, and, he could have stood up there and said, we need to have civil rights for all races, not just whites. And he could have laid out a 10-point plan for how we could do that. But no, he stood up there and he said, I have a dream. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. That's a quote directly from his speech. And that's painting a picture. Like that's tangible. Like I can envision that, right? Like you can totally see what that looks like. And that's, again, that gets back to being aspirational. It's audacious because, at the time that was unheard of. Again, back to JFK, he could have stood up there and said, we are going to lead the world in space exploration. People are like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But no, he stood up there and he said, we are going to land a man on the moon and bring him home safely. I really like that second part of it, and bring him home safely, because it's one thing to just land a man on the moon and then leave him there. It's something else entirely to bring him home safely. And so, but you can envision that. Like you can see what that looks like, right? Like I can envision a person landing on the moon and then coming back, and all of the parades and the celebrations that we will have when we accomplish this thing. Like, I don't have any idea how we're going to do it. This is awful audacious, but man, if we were the nation that could do that, man, that's, I could aspire to be that. So yeah, tangible, aspirational, audacious. I think those are the three things that has to be, for sure.
There are definitely some things that it does not have to be. And one thing is definitely time bound. Like some work is truly infinite. Like Simon Sinek talks about the infinite game, that it's just continuous. It lasts forever. But some work is actually time bound. We choose to go to the moon this decade, and this can instill that sense of urgency.
Yeah. And so this one I struggled with as I was, trying to come up with like, what does a vision have to be? Do you really have to put a time on it? Like in your case, if Chad had said, we're going to make Hitchcock 2,200 acres, it's going to be bound by this highway, by this river and this creek by this date, would that, it begs the question, would it have accelerated the rate at which it would have happened? Or there's also the risk of if that time is not enough, then it becomes an impossible thing. Or what happens if you don't hit that timeline? If you miss the deadline and you're not quite there yet, is that demotivating? And so I don't think the time bound thing is necessary. And certainly in the world of natural resource restoration, there is no end game. Once you guys acquire these lands, and that restoration never ceases, because the minute it ceases, it starts reverting back. That's what got it into the rough shape that it's in to start with. And so that truly is infinite work. And so, yeah, the time bound thing isn't necessarily a thing. The other thing I think a vision does not have to be is it, and this is kind of maybe contradictory to what I just said, but it doesn't have to be overly grand. Like, yes, it's got to be audacious and it's got to kind of push the limits of what you or your organization is capable of. But the vision doesn't have to be as grand as like a national park system or a civil rights movement or landing a human on the moon. It can be a playground. It can be a public natural resource area that grows by whatever 5x or 10x or whatever. Have to be on a national scale. It's just scale is relative, I think, in this type of situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think really is the thing to think about too. Another point is that it doesn't have to be on a clear path. A vision is not a plan. It's just an aspirational end state. Like that map that was up on the wall in your office. Like that was not, we have to do this and this and this and this. And this is a 10-point plan, and we will do everything, and this is how we're going to do it. It is just simply this vision. It's this aspirational thing that we're trying to shoot for. And like those board members had no idea even how to build county parks. Like that was like county park system was literally a brand new thing. And I was the only state in the whole nation that has this county park thing. So they were just like, you know what? Let's throw something up on the wall and let's see if it actually sticks and see if we can actually get people rallied around this idea. The next thing here is that like we really actually have to end up turning this vision into reality. Like it can't just forever be a map on the wall. We have to relentlessly communicate that vision. We have to celebrate the wins, even the small ones, especially the small ones. Celebrate the small wins. Like at Big Hollow, I remember when you guys did a ribbon cutting for just a park information kiosk. Like I was still there then. Like it wasn't even really this like established, like it wasn't on that map on the wall, but it was still something that was awesome. It was this thing that was tangible to push this vision forward.
Yeah, it was, and the vision was, we're going to create a world class park was the way we keep describing it. And so any little thing that improves the park is progress towards creating the type of park that people want to go to, the type of park that has the quality of amenities that you would see in a national park or in any sort of state park. And here we are, this little county department, this little river town in southeast Iowa, but yet we've got these big aspirations to do these type of things. So every little step towards that, we tried to celebrate. And same thing, like on your end, I haven't been there, but I would hope that every little land acquisition that you celebrate, and I know you send me pictures that you're celebrating every time you cut down another few acres of cedars.
Right.
And so I hope you're celebrating that, beyond just a picture to me.
Yeah, exactly. And like with this celebration of like the small wins, like this is the opportunity to make the community or the supporters the heroes. It's not you or your organization. It's like, especially in the case of Hitchcock, it's those landowners of the 13 purchases previous that have gotten Hitchcock from 500 acres to 1500. Like the little old lady in her house in the heart of Hitchcock that historically their family had donated a conservation easement and donated part of the property and then donated a life estate. Like this lady, while she was still alive, like it was not public, but her wish was for that land to become public afterwards. Like it was so not public that if you were caught at the pond, you would literally be scared away by a shotgun. Like she would literally scare you away with a shotgun. But like she was a hero of Hitchcock's story because like the very core of Hitchcock was part of their family property, and they believed in that mission so much that they actually donated those things. Like I said, they donated land value and made it become a reality. And one project
Mhm.
that I got to work on that I wrote a REAP grant for, like another family that ended up with the little old lady in the little brick house that like they believed in the vision so much that they allowed management on their property before we even took ownership for it. Like their property was critical to having fire on a larger landscape scale to get parts that were on Hitchcock accomplished. It was critical to burn onto their property, and they believed so much that in this vision, they believed in the vision so much they allowed us to burn, they allowed us to do management, and they wanted it to be a part of Hitchcock. Like there was no other question when it came up for sale who was going to be the ultimate buyer of that property.
Yeah, that's that's legacy right there. We mentioned earlier about once the vision is achieved. So let's assume you do have a non-infinite vision, and it's an acre count. Whatever, you get this park bound by this road and this river, this stream, whatever. Once that vision's achieved, celebrate the hell out of it. But then launch a new one. For the love of God, don't just sit there. I mean, maybe give it some time so you can get your capacity up to where you need to be to maintain management. But I think what I see so many organizations fail to do is develop a new compelling vision that gets people rallied around what they do. And then they just kind of stagnate. Like, yeah, they provide some parks. Their parks are nice. But like people, we have this innate need for like things to constantly be better and to aspire to more and to want to rally around a vision. And if you give just, that's the main point we've made this whole episode. It's just if you have something to give people to rally around, some of them will. And once you have that grows momentum, and then God, there's no end to what you can achieve. But it
And
all starts with vision.
the perfect example of this, I think, is the Neil Smith Wildlife Refuge in Iowa. When it was actually put into place by Congress to get to this acre amount, and part of it revolved around that there were some little remnants, and the driving force was to get to that acre count and to have this huge push to use seed from those remnants to restore this whole area, to have this restored tall grass prairie in the heart of Iowa. And I may have the numbers wrong here, but I believe that the numbers are at the peak. They had over 20 full-time employees, and now they're down to like 4. So now that that original vision has been achieved, like there was nothing else. It just
Yeah.
kind of ended up kind of fizzling out and getting to a point of we don't have this driving force or this driving vision that we're going to have this robust staffing. So let's just knock down those staffing and get to a point where it's even hard to kind of take care of it once you've actually achieved that vision.
I wonder if the failing there was that the vision was one of acres and not one of impact.
Right.
And if they had changed that, and I don't know the story at all over there, but if that vision was we aspire to be the the source of knowledge or the source of prairie restoration for Iowa. That could have meant so many things. It could mean it's a seed source. It could mean it's a knowledge source. It could mean it's a training source. And in order to do this, we have to get this many acres in order for our operation to be viable. But then once the acre count is reached, the vision still remains because now you get to execute just on a different level of it. Now we've got this seed source that we can use. And now become a training facility and just so many other things rather than we're going to get X number of acres. And then once you get there, then what happens? And I've seen this with different other organizations. They get that big vision and they get that big park built or whatever. And then it's like, now what do we do? And that could be demotivating to staff and to followers and supporters because they were rallied around this big audacious goal and then it's met and now it's like, well, we want something like audacious to aspire to. This can't just be it. There's
Right.
gotta be more. So yeah, just be careful with that. That'd be a caution for anybody out there listening. Once that vision is achieved, great. Celebrate the heck out of it. And tell the world how great the supporters are that they got it to there. But then uh it's it's got to be, hey, we're not done. We got this accomplished. Now nobody thought we could do this, and we just did it. So now we're going to do something even cooler, or we're going to expand on this momentum, or whatever it is. There's a bajillion different ways you could do that. But
Really just go back to having that compelling vision. Make sure that the 3 things that we covered make it audacious, aspirational, and make it tangible. That's really the key here is to really what we're trying to say is that we're trying to come up with a vision that's going to connect the community around you.
And if you're the type that, and we talked about different types of people in a previous episode, if you're the type that doesn't think that way, if you're more of the doer type, which is perfectly fine, you're like, just tell me what we need to do and I'll go out and get it done. Like I love getting things checked off a list. I don't like sitting coming up with a big compelling vision. That's cool. We can give you a hand on that. So don't hesitate to reach out. I love having vision quests with people. As Jeremy knows, that was some of the most fun that we've ever had working together. That was our vision quest. And just there's a bit of an art to developing that compelling vision and having that the way that you state it. Just like we said earlier, MLK could have said we need civil rights for everybody, but he didn't say it that way. And I'd be happy to help you do that. So parksandrestoration.com is the easiest way to get a hold of us. And you can also be sure to subscribe to the Next Level Leader mailing list because you'll be getting pointers on how to do shit like this in those emails on a pretty regular basis, about every 2 weeks. That is
and
it.
Don't forget to find us on Instagram and Facebook. All of our episodes are on YouTube now as well. So like and share on Instagram. It really helps out and really connects us back to this community that we're building amongst park leaders and trying to create that next level leadership community.
Yes. All right. With that, we are out of here. Thank you, listener, for what you do, whether you work in parks, whether you work in natural resources, work in conservation, or just something adjacent to. We certainly do appreciate what you do out there. This is the Parks and Restoration Podcast, where every couple weeks we share insights and tips and tricks for you to be the next level leader that your agency, that your community, and future generations need you to be. We will talk to you again in a couple weeks. Take care.